Welcome back to the Kyle Olson Show. 10 days until Election Day. 10 days. Joining me now, I'm so honored, is Donald Trump Jr. Don, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
The allegations about Hunter Biden continue to come out. It's almost impossible to keep up with all of them. What's your reaction to how he was seemingly using his father's position as vice president to enrich himself?
Well, listen, it's disgusting, and I take it personally. The media, the Democrats, they spent 3 years literally accusing me of doing all the things that Hunter Biden was actually doing. Now, they found nothing because there was nothing. But now that it's on the Bidens, they have no interest in looking. I mean, they literally did the Russia nonsense for 3 years. I testified for 30 hours before the House and Senate. They said I committed treason. Hunter Biden's doing it, and it's not just the Ukrainians. Then it's also the 3.5 from the Putin associate in Russia and 1.5 billion from the Chinese government. I mean, it never ends. Joe Biden is compromised, and the mainstream media and social media trying to cover that up so that they can basically get Kamala Harris in as president should scare all of us. I wouldn't have said this a couple of days ago. You know, the Second Amendment's obviously, that's always on the table with the Democrats. But honestly, this time with the social media censorship and the mainstream media censorship of a major newspaper like the New York Post, a 200-year-old institution, our First Amendment is on the table this election. And if the Democrats win and allow big tech to keep doing their nonsense, freedom of speech as we know it in this country is over.
So what do you think would have happened if Donald Trump Jr. would have taken a $3.5 million wire transfer from the wife of the former mayor of Moscow?
I'd be in jail. I'd be phoning into this call, not from my iPhone, but from a payphone at Rikers Island feeding quarters. That's what would happen. You know, that's the reality. This is money that regular U.S. banks wouldn't touch it because it was literally tied to prostitution rings and child trafficking rings. The Biden family is literally tied to these things. Now you have a Navy vet and former Biden friend coming out and saying, yeah, of course Joe knew about it today. Today he's saying it. Joe knew. After 2 years of lying, he knew nothing about it. Yeah, the vice president knew nothing about his son making millions and millions of dollars, holding 10 for the big guy. Who do you think the big guy is? How do you think Joe Biden's income went from $300,000 a year to $17 million since he left office? It's not because he's a great public speaker giving speeches. We've sort of seen how failed that is. So give me a break. This is disgusting. It's corruption at the highest levels. And it's honestly worse than that as it relates to the media and the way they're handling it, because that is truly disgusting, what social media is trying to do to censor the truth and help their preferred candidate win.
So what do you think all of these allegations against Hunter Biden mean about the judgment of his father to allow that to go on?
I mean, sort of a rhetorical question, but it's obvious they're okay with it. They're okay with this. This is their family business. You know, get rich, right? Hunter's holding 10. You saw the other emails. Hey, I've been carrying this family forever. So yeah, he's making a lot of money, peddling influence, peddling access to the highest forms of government. You think Joe Biden's going to be tough on China when his son's making $30 million a year for the Biden family from them in his fund? You think he's going to be tough on China? He hasn't been yet. He spent decades being soft on China, pushing for their permanent status in the World Trade Organization, which destroyed more American jobs and blue-collar manufacturing jobs than anything in modern American history. But the media will pretend that, it's blue-collar Joe fighting for America. Mm-hmm. It's not. He's fighting for himself and his son. And again, that people would turn a blind eye to this. Who knows? This is the compromising information that they hope that the Trumps were doing. Because they would oust us out of office. If we did this, the Republicans would force my father to step down. And they'd be right.
Sure.
And they'd be right. But no one in the media, no one in the Democrat Party is saying this is even remotely a problem. They're now peddling Iranian disinformation.
Right.
The media and the Democrats are now knowingly peddling Iranian disinformation to try to hurt Donald Trump. And they're just fine with that. That should scare everyone.
So it's officially hunting season in Michigan, and I know you're an avid hunter. So let's talk about Joe Biden's gun tax proposals. Breitbart News reports if Joe Biden has his way, current AR-15 owners could be hit with $3.6 billion in new taxes for guns that they already own. What's your message to hunters and gun owners who are undecided in this election?
Yeah, well, listen, hunters have traditionally sat out elections. I don't want to mix politics with my pastime. If you think that the AR-15 is the only thing on the table, you're wrong. As a vocal hunter, as someone who's supported those things and been out there, the amount of hate mail I get from the left about hunting and this kind of stuff is insane. They're coming after all of those great American traditions. You see, they don't care about anything American. They would love to destroy all of that. It's not just your AR-15. Now, the taxation thing is crazy. And you saw what happened in California recently, right? The high-capacity magazine ban was overturned in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, where the Constitution goes to die, because there was a Trump appointee on that bench that said, this is ridiculous, it's unconstitutional. So they overturned the high-capacity magazine ban. That was a big overreach anyway in California because of a Trump judge. That's why we need 4 years. So hunters, your pastime is on the table. The other side, the left, their hobby is messing with your pastime. You guys better get involved. I've done a bunch of stuff, and I'm probably at the end of the month going to be going around, Michigan with Ted Nugent, a good buddy of mine, great hunter, a couple other guys like that, talking about just this. You have to get involved. You have to get out there and vote your values. Gun owners, it's sort of obvious. You think it stops at AR-15s? No, then it'll be semi-automatic shotguns, because why do you need that third shot for if you're going duck hunting? It'll be everything. This is just the slippery slope that they want to start. We've seen that with the left. They try to get a little bit, they pretend they're reasonable. The next day, when we concede and we try to be reasonable with them, the next day they're coming after the next thing. That's the way they play. We better wake up to it, and we better do something about it. So get out there, vote, understand that your AR-15 is on the line. For those new gun owners who bought guns in the last couple of months, many of whom could be Democrat, they're going to try to confiscate that. The problem is the Democrats have also been pretty clear that they're willing to tell the police to stand down if something's happening in your neighborhood. So you're going to want that gun to possibly defend yourself and your family, a very basic American right. But you think the Democrats aren't going to try to go after everything? Because if you think that, you haven't been watching.
So Joe Biden apparently also wants to create a $200 tax for, quote, high-capacity magazines. He doesn't define high capacity. It's probably more than one round. But should supporters of the Second Amendment be worried about the prospect of a Joe Biden presidency?
100%, because it's not Joe Biden. It's beyond that. No one believes Joe Biden's going to be in charge. Like, come on, just look at the guy. Give me a break. It's Kamala Harris. It's Bernie. I mean, it's that radical left. I mean, Joe Biden's, like, if we're talking hunting analogies, Joe Biden is the camouflage to get in the radical left. The radical left doesn't believe in the Second Amendment at all. They'd love to get rid of all guns. I mean, high capacity is going to be a 5-shot revolver. 6 shots will throw you over the limit if you have a conventional, if you're not shooting a J-frame. Like, this is what will happen. They're utilizing Joe Biden. They'll say, oh, it's moderate Joe. It's moderate Joe. Don't worry. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen other than a couple $1 billion taxes on your AR, and some taxes on, magazines. I mean, I have a lot of guns. I probably have 400 magazines. Am I going to have to pay $200 for each one of my magazines because of what I have? Does every little, 10-round drum that I have for a 10-22 for my kids to shoot, is that going to be taxed at a couple $100 a year? I mean, that's going to be their plan. They're going to try to make it so cost prohibitive to be able to have guns that the average person will be forced to go away with it. And the problem is, like all gun control, you'll see it doesn't help stop crime. It doesn't do that. All it does is prevent law-abiding citizens, people who are willing to follow the law, from being able to defend themselves. Because I have a feeling criminals aren't going to pay the taxes. They're just going to keep it under their bed and not tell anyone.
Right. That's right. And we're just about out of time, but Michigan is factoring majorly into the president's strategy for re-election. What are you doing to convince Michiganders to send your father back to the White House?
Well, listen, it's about talking about his record. He created the strongest economy America has ever seen. The guy that can do that, the guy that did that, is the guy that can do it again. Hunter Biden today owns 10%. We're talking Michigan, owns 10% of a Chinese company that is taking American manufacturing jobs out of Michigan and American technology and sending them to China. That's happening today. Think of the hypocrisy. They're not going to bat for you. Donald Trump renegotiated NAFTA, gave us the USMCA. Donald Trump got a trade deal done with China. Donald Trump is the guy actually fighting. Donald Trump is the guy doing all of the things that our politicians have talked about for decades. He's actually getting it done because he's willing to fight. He's willing to engage. He doesn't just listen to what some D.C. bureaucrat and special interests tell him to do. That's what Joe Biden's been doing for 47 years. If you're on the fence in Michigan, name a single Joe Biden accomplishment. Name one. And if you can't, after half a century in the Washington, D.C. swamp, Doesn't that tell you everything you need to know? So get out there and vote and bring your friends. Don't take any of it for granted because they're coming after you. They're coming after your freedoms. They're coming after your liberties. And you don't have to look any further than the last 4 or 5 days to know that that's not hyperbole anymore. That's the real deal.
Donald Trump Jr., thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
This is the Kyle Olson Show. We'll be right back.